There it is. You can see all of the indents. We will be doing a series of videos where I set up my containers according to these recipes. Hi, it's Steph. Welcome back to my garden. Today we're going to work on the first planters of the season, and I've picked up some really beautiful annuals and I can't wait to get them planted. Last fall when we did the garage skins project, I had picked up this planter here which I really like. So I ended up going back to pick up two more to put one on either side of our stairs so that we'll have a set of three in the driveway that all match. I wanted to make these self-watering containers. So I started doing a little bit of research and I found that Proven Winners has these AquaPots Lite Inserts so that you can convert your planters into self-watering containers. So that is what we're going to do today. But before I get planting these up, I need to pick up some soil, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So today I'm at my local Ace Hardware and I'm going to pick up some soil to get our planting done. But as you can see, they carry a large variety of all of the coast of Maine soils. And today I'm going to grab 5 bags of the Bar Harbor potting soil blend. All right, let's get started. And the first thing I want to go over is these AquaPot inserts. Now, a couple of years ago, Proven Winners had come up with the AquaPot system, which consisted of a planter that had a built-in or integrated self-watering system. But because they wanted to give consumers the option to also use their own planters, they now have this available, which is just the AquaPot Lite Insert. And you can use it in any planter that is 16 to 20 inches in diameter and in height. Now, we have a little bit of a unique situation here because the planters that I selected are 30 inches in height. So I had to do a little bit of a retrofit in order to get these to work. And all I did was take a planter. Now, I've shown this on my channel multiple times. This is usually something that I do to save on soil that I fill large containers with. I just take a container and I flip it upside down and it will take up some volume in the planter. But in this case, I'm using this planter flipped upside down as a riser so that I can sit my AquaPot Lite right on top and have my self-watering reservoir. Now, the way that these work is it's a wicking system. So essentially, if you think of it like self-watering or watering your seedlings, for example, I actually have some here that I'm going to use in these planters. These are my Vigo trays that I grew some seeds in. This is some phlox. And you can see that when you water seedlings, you want to water from the bottom. So you would have these on a tray, you would put the water into the tray, and these would sop up the water from the bottom. Well, that is essentially how these AquaPot inserts work. You can see here in the photo that you're going to fill it with soil and you're going to use this tube to fill with water, and the water will go down into the reservoir, and then the soil will absorb that water from the bottom and water your plants. If you have a square planter, they also have this insert that you can use for a square planter, which is awesome. I've placed my AquaPot insert inside my planter, and you can see that it has this spout. Now, this spout is adjustable up or down depending on the height of your planter, and you can also move it to different corners depending on where you choose to water from. Now, when I go ahead and pour soil into my planter, it is going to fall into this indent that you see here in the reservoir. And that's right, that's what you want. You want to make sure that your soil fills this area and continues to fill the pot, because this is where the water is going to wick from. The soil that's in this hole is going to wick from this reservoir, and the water is going to rise and water all of your plants. This is the planter that I set up last fall, but now I need to make room to put in my AquaPot insert. So I'm going to have to dig out these perennials that I have planted here as well as the soil. And what I'm going to do is, because this soil is still fairly new, I'm going to use it to start the 2 planters that I just set up the AquaPots in. And these perennials, I have a Proven Winners I Spy Heucherella. I had 2 asters, one returned, one didn't, and I have a caramel heuchera. So I'm going to take these 3 perennials, plant them out in the garden, repurpose the soil, and get the AquaPot placed in here as well. And now for my favorite part, we get to plant these up. Over the winter, when I was really missing my garden and I wanted to come up with some fun and interesting containers for the season, I took some time to check out the Proven Winners website. And they have something called container recipes. Now, if you like to cook, I love to cook, but you are familiar with a recipe. You basically get a list of the components, you put them together, and it works out to be something wonderful. And that is what I did with all of my planters this season. We will be doing a series of videos this year where I set up my containers according to these recipes. So today was starting with these driveway planters, and the one that I chose for these is called Blew My Mind. Now, the fun thing about these recipes is that you can use them loosely, like I did. So for example, the Blew My Mind recipe on the Proven Winners website called for a petunia as well as a gypsophilia, and I opted to use some sun patience as well as some euphorbia in place of those plants. So it's really fun to just kind of get inspired by those recipes and then put something together that you like. Here's a peek at the notebook where I worked on my combinations throughout the winter. You can see that I listed out the area that I was looking to plant up and the different plants that I wanted for those areas. And good thing I used pencil because there was a lot of erasing going on during the planning process. When I go to the nursery each spring, I love the process, but it takes me a really long time. Having a list made things a lot easier. It's kind of like when you go to the grocery store hungry, right? You just want everything. Well, the same concept with this. You are making a list and you're sticking to it. So here are the plants that we're going to place. I have some of this really beautiful Sun Patience Compact White Impatiens. They are beautiful. And now I love Sun Patience. And while the recipe did call for a white petunia, I opted to use the Sun Patience because I've had really good luck with them. They go all season long. They don't require any deadheading. They are self-cleaning, but also because they retain water pretty well. And I want things that are very low maintenance in this driveway area. So that is what I'm going to use in place of the white petunia. And then I went with this euphorbia because I grew it last year and it was beautiful. So this was what I chose in place of the gypsophilia. Now this was in the recipe, and this is the Proven Accents White Licorice, also known as Helichrysum. Grew this last year. It is amazing. You need one plant in the front of the container and it will get huge throughout the course of the season. In the center, I'm going with another tried and true. It's the Graceful Grasses, the purple fountain grass, which I absolutely love. And this will transition this container right from now through summer into fall because it will be a gorgeous, tall purple grass with plumes. It's gonna look great. And this was part of the recipe as well. This was the Angel Face Blue. It is a summer snapdragon. It's called Angelonia Hybrid. And it has a gorgeous deep blue flower. Very pretty. So this is going in here as well. And something that I grew from seed. This is the Blueberry Swirl Phlox. So I'm using this also as a substitution to another plant that was in the recipe as my blue trailing accent. So all of these plants I think are going to look gorgeous together. And the color scheme was white, silver, and blue. I'm all done planting up the containers and I really love the way that they turned out. So in the back, I have the purple fountain grass. In the center, I tucked two of the white Sun Patience. On either corner, I have a blue Angelonia. And then in the front, I have Diamond Frost Euphorbia, one here and there. And in the front, the white Helichrysum, or white licorice. And I think this is going to look beautiful in the front of the container. I also tucked in two of these phlox that I grew from seed. This is the Blueberry Swirl Phlox. When we did a garden tour at my friend Maureen's garden last year, she had grown some of this from seed and had them in her planter outside her garage, and it was gorgeous. So I made a note to buy the seeds this year and grow them as well, and I think they're going to look really beautiful. And it was definitely time to plant them because they were getting stressed in their seed cells. You can tell by the foliage, it's a little bit get yellow. But once they settle into this spot and we have these shades of silver and white and purple blues, I think this is going to be gorgeous, and I can't wait to see it grow throughout the season. But right now we're going to go ahead and water them. I have filled up my watering can and we're going to fill our AquaPots insert. You'll know that the AquaPots insert is full once the water starts overflowing outside the reservoir and starts draining out of your container. I also went ahead and completed this planter, and I did the same combo here. And while I was working in the driveway, I thought that it would be a good idea to also do my stairwell planter. Now, this is one that is right off of the driveway, and it is the stairs that lead up to our kitchen on the back porch. So here is what I've picked out for this planter. I have some of the graceful grasses. Now, I've grown this variety before, and I didn't like it the first time around because I grew the king tut, which was really large and fibrous and difficult to get out of my container at the end of the season. But this one is the queen tut, and it is smaller. So this one only gets to be 18 to 24 inches in height and 12 to 24 inches in width. So I thought that I would try this one again because I really love the way that these look like little firework bursts. I think they're really interesting, and I think the variety that I picked initially was just too large for me. So let's give this one a go. I also picked out two of my favorite lobelia from last season that I grew in this very same planter, and it did wonderful. This is the Laguna Sky Blue. Look at that. Such a beautiful shade of blue. And I'm pairing it with another sun patient. And this is the Compact Deep Rose Sun Patient. Look at that. I think that with the blue is going to look so pretty. And then as my trailer, this was one that I tried for the first time last year as well, and I loved it. It's the Mizzou Trailing Red. It's sort of like a succulent, and then it gets this little bloom of a pink flower that I think will coordinate nicely with the Sun Patient. So we're gonna go ahead and plant these out here. As I was finishing up that planter between the garages, I remembered a reel that I had seen on either Instagram or YouTube where you take your plant can and you press it into the soil, and what you're doing is you're making an indent or a mold of where your plant is going to go. And once you get it nice and low where it's supposed to sit, you take your plant out of the plant can and you drop it into that hole, which I think was a really great way to go about planting containers, because typically I just put my plant in and then I mound soil and tuck it all in around the plant. So we're gonna give that a shot. I'll bring you in closer so you can see how that works out. There it is. You can see all of the indents that we made for the plants. And now we're going to take them out of the plant can and plant them out. In this planter, I don't have an aqua pot, so I'm just going to hand water it. And this corner is morning sun, but afternoon shade, so the planter typically retains moisture pretty well. And here in the front, I also have a creeping Jenny, which here in my state of Massachusetts, it's actually an invasive species, so it's not allowed to be sold in any of the nurseries. But I have a friend right over the state line in Rhode Island who shared some with me, and I've been growing them in my containers for several years. So I'm just going to leave this here. I wouldn't plant it in the landscape for fear of it taking over, but in planters, I really like it. And it trails nicely, has a really nice chartreuse color. So we'll leave it in there growing alongside the Mizzou. I'm really happy with the selections I made for this planter, and as the plants grow throughout the season and fill out the container, I think it's going to look really beautiful. So this Rose Impatient I think contrasts so nicely with the Laguna Sky Blue Lobelia, and then the Mizzou is going to get a little pink flower that will also coordinate with the Rose Impatient, and I think this is just going to look lovely. And then we have a little bit of height in the back with the Graceful Grasses Queen Tut that look like little fireworks. So I'm happy with this. I think it's going to be really, really great. And what I like to do is tuck the tags from the plants or the annuals that I used in the back of the container there, so that you can reference them if there's something in your container that grows really well that year and you want to repeat that combo in the future. So I did that last year with the Laguna Sky Blue Lobelia as well as the Mizzou. I kept the tags, I put them in an envelope in my gardening notebook, and that way I knew that I wanted to repeat those plants. Someone had made a comment when I showed that in my video last year. They said, oh, those tags don't look great in the container. And I thought to myself, well, you can see them now because the plants aren't grown in, but once they fill out, you won't even know that they're there, and they're really great for reference. And I did the same thing with the driveway planters. I have a set of tags in the back for reference. Planted out two of those perennials that we removed from the planter near the garage, and here's where I put the aster, right in this patio bed behind my Monet Purple Effect Weigela and near my Garnet Japanese Maple. Now this is where I had a St. John's wort that I planted last season or the season before, but it didn't return this year. It died over the winter. We had a really dry fall and then really cold temperatures in the winter, so I think the combination of drought with really cold temps, I lost quite a few plants this year, which was such a bummer. But that's the new home for the aster. And the caramel heuchera, I went ahead and planted in this area where I already have a group of some caramel heuchera. So I wanted to continue this beautiful plant. So I went ahead and I placed it right there underneath this Ariadne Japanese maple. And the heucherella, I'm still trying to decide on a spot. So I'm going to place it here in Steph's home nursery to keep it watered until I can plant it. Well, the first containers of the season are complete, and I really love the way they turned out. And in just a couple more weeks, the heat's going to really kick in, and these are going to explode with growth. So now that these are done, I'm on to the front porch. So thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.